It's Monday, May 25th, and while some of you out there may have found your way here referring to it as Memorial Day, I call it McGuire Monday because I'm joined by Pierre McGuire as I am almost every single Monday here on Toronto Sports Rush. Pierre, the Stanley Cup playoffs, full of twists and turns, but of course, this is Toronto Sports Rush. We have to start with the Maple Leafs, and word has come out this morning that Max Domi is now listed as out indefinitely following complications from an offseason surgery. What can you tell us?
I can tell you that's not good news for Toronto. Max is a guy that's heart and soul, and I think he was part of the solution going forward, Kyle, not part of the problem. And so for him to have this kind of a setback after surgery, and I don't know what the setback is. I wish I could tell you a little bit more. I'm over in Zurich right now at the World Hockey Championships. But I can tell you there was a resounding shot across the bow for most of the NHL players that are here when they heard that news. So it's a tough break for Max and obviously for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And now there's going to have to be some adjusting on the fly by John Jake and Matt Sundin because he's an important part of their team.
Yeah, because the official word right now is that it will be reevaluated at the start of training camp, which does not sound promising because it is still May right now. We're a couple of months away from training camp. It was speculated that he was one of several Toronto Maple Leafs players playing injured this year. This offseason surgery was, in fact, basically confirming that to all of us. One of the many issues the Leafs dealt with this year. I you just mentioned Chaka, and how long can they wait for information about something like this before they have to address it, possibly through the trade market or even later, deeper in the draft?
I think they got to address it right away internally. They've had their amateur scouting meetings. Now they're going to have to identify, look, there are no players outside of maybe the first overall pick, which they were fortunate enough to win in the lottery. But outside of that, there's no players coming in. They're going to help the Toronto Maple Leafs right away. So they're
Yeah.
going to have to address it at the pro level. And so this is where, the pro scouts really are important. This is where John Chayka's experience, whether it's lacking or very positive, is going to matter. This is where Matt Sundin's connections are going to matter. How much has Matt's been watching NHL hockey over the last 3 or 4 years? They're going to have to do something because you cannot stand pat with the roster that you have right now. You learned last year when you decided that Mitchell Marner wasn't going to be part of your group going forward. You learned that that's a pretty painful price to pay. And now, if you don't have Max Domi and you compound that with obviously not having Mitchell Marner, that's 2 years in a row where you've had pretty significant losses. So I don't think they can afford to do that.
So I want to turn the focus here a little bit to some possible positive news out of Leafland, and we look to the Toronto Marlies for that right now because they're currently on a fairly successful playoff run, finding themselves in the conference finals down there. One of the things that has been brought up ad nauseum with this team is the goaltending situation sufficient? Because they now have two goalies who 2 seasons ago proved to be a formidable 1-2 tandem, but they have trouble staying on the ice. And this past season obviously didn't go as well across the board, not just goaltending, of course. But Artur Akhtamov in on the Marlies right now is currently the MVP of that team, carrying them into the conference finals. I believe his save percentage is 922 right now, but he's looked steady. He's been very consistent. And we did mention him multiple times throughout the season, and he did get a couple of looks up in the big show this year. Is it possible that this is a problem the Leafs have, but the solution can be found internally?
Very much so. The one thing I would, though, just equate just for the fans, winning in the American Hockey League doesn't guarantee NHL success,
Of course.
but it's a huge step forward. And I was just sitting here with a bunch of European club team owners and general managers not long ago here in Zurich. And one of the things we were talking about, the NHL is the best league in the world. Everybody knows that. But right now, the American Hockey League is running away with the second best league. A lot of people used to think it was a KHL. Some people thought it was a Swedish Hockey League. Some people thought it was in Finland. Right now, it's the NHL, the AHL, and everybody else is way behind. So if you're ripping it up in the AHL, you have the opportunity to really do well in the NHL. It's not a guarantee, but it sure works better than the other potential opportunities from other leagues that you could be looking at. Akhtamov is a very good player. I think everybody knows that. But I would say this too, it's really important. That's a good veteran team. They do have some kids down there in Toronto,
Mhm.
but you look at the leadership of Vinny Lettieri and the goal scoring, and you look at Logan Shaw and what he's been able to do. I got to tell you, Kyle, they've got some really good people. Marshall Rafai is another one that comes to mind when I think about their team. I worked with Logan Shaw when he was part of the Ottawa Senators organization. He is a phenomenal leader. He's a great person. Those kids are learning from fantastic people down there. I think that can't be mentioned enough. So I do think Toronto's got some internal help, and Akimov could be part of that.
Yeah, Pierre, and I wanted to bring up the conversation about internal help simply because this team's uh, f- the likelihood of their success in the future, it can't just be the trade market, it can't just be the draft. They need sort of a three-headed approach of internal development, and this
Mhm.
could be one of their solutions if they have to move one of these goalies as a trade piece potentially to correct one of the other problems. Is that I think no matter which of the two current NHL goaltenders they kept, combining him with Aktimov and giving this kid a chance at the number two and potentially the number one could be a part of the solution. And speaking of internal answers, I'd like to hear your thoughts on Miroslav Holinka being a legitimate solution to strengthening it. We've talked about this all season long. They need more strength down the center. This kid has proven himself. I mean, he's got a ways to go given age and experience, but is he a potential answer as a number 3 or 4 center?
100%. If you look at his first year playing for the Edmonton Oil Kings in the Western Hockey League, which was last year, he was solid. If you look at the 1 year progression from last year to this year, it's pretty substantial. Skill level is very high, likes to dominate the puck, makes the players around him better, can accelerate with the puck on his stick, has great peripheral vision. All the things you want to see from a guy that can impact the outcome of a game, he's got it, and he's not afraid to have the puck on his stick in traffic, which is really good. Does he need to be stronger? Yes. Can he be a little bit quicker through the neutral zone? Yes. Can he be better defensively? Absolutely. But this speaks to long-term solution. This guy could be a potential helper here, which is really important.
Yeah, and with these internal solutions, potentially, we're just proposing is we don't know how these guys will work out in the show at the top level of hockey, but it would allow them in the offseason to focus on this true, we need puck moving defensemen, we need this, we need that. They can focus themselves on those directives as opposed to simply looking for a trade for every as a solution to every one of the holes on this team.
2 years ago, I remember starting doing this show with you, Cal, and I had so much fun doing it. And one of the names I kept mentioning was Roman Yossi, Roman
Mhm.
Yossi, Roman Yossi. Toronto's got to try to make a deal with a team from Nashville that's not going to make the playoffs. They're really looking for an identity. Roman Yossi's a guy that helps Toronto a lot, helps them a ton. So I come into Zurich today. I'm on a Swiss Air flight from Stockholm, and all of a sudden there's Roman Yossi on the screen right in front of me. He's now the face. Can you believe this? He is the face of Swiss Airlines in terms of their commercial outreach to people from all over the world. It's
Wow.
amazing. I'm watching that and I'm going, that's the Roman Yossi I know. That's the guy I kept telling Kyle should be coming to Toronto. Yeah, it's an amazing story. The Swiss are doing great at the World Hockey Championships. He's the kind of player they could use on the back end. Experienced, elite puck mover, can run the power play 24 to 28 minutes a game. If they can find a guy like that, they got to get him.
Unfortunately, now, Pierre, though, I've just received word in my ear from producer Tim that Swiss Air collaboration he's doing may have outpriced him, and the Leafs can no longer afford him. Whether you never know, Cheka might just do it for the cheap European travel. I'm sure he has a great bonus code you can use on their website. Okay, so let's transition, as I love to say, to the hockey team still playing. We have two conference finals well underway at this point, and oh my God, we have to start out west. Mitch Marner continues to lead the playoffs in scoring, and he is leading this Vegas Golden Knights team to an upset. They're up 3-0 over Colorado right now.
What's amazing, you used the number 3-0. Think back to game one. Vegas goes up 3-0 in game one. Big pushback, obviously, from Colorado, but they can't get the job done. Then Colorado in game two is leading 1-0 late in the game. Vegas comes back and wins 3-1. Then last night, it's a 3-0 lead for Vegas, or sorry, for Colorado in Vegas. And all of a sudden, that lead disappears. And now Vegas is looking at like they're going to sweep this thing, which is unbelievable. You got to think the injury to Cale Makar played a little bit of a role in that. And then obviously Nathan McKinnon getting hurt in the second half of that game, blocking a shot. That's not good news for them either. I think this would be an amazing upset if Colorado could come back. Vegas deserves a ton of credit. Mitchell Marner deserves a lot of credit. But I'll tell you what, Carter Art is not getting enough praise for the way he's playing. And Shea Theodore has been phenomenal on defense for Vegas. But it's all about team in Vegas. And you and I both know John Tortorella might not be the guy you want to have over for Christmas dinner, but John Tortorella is coaching his derriere off. He's done an amazing job creating an us versus the world mentality, and the players have responded to it.
Pierre, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. You've never had Christmas dinner at my house. He's exactly the person I want there. But I'm going to come back to Torts in a second here because I want to stick with Mitch Marner because I if you're a Leafs fan right now, this isn't a great thing to watch because I think
Yeah.
if you look at this Vegas team at a pure talent level, he is not really surrounded with much better talent than he was in Toronto, and arguably less offensive talent when you talk about being surrounded by Matthews and Nylander as opposed to Stone and Eichel. That's probably a wash, right? Because Stone's been not quite himself and whatnot. But he's really gone on to prove that it's not me, it's you type of situation. But if anything, on the verge of a Toronto Maple Leafs rebuild, this to me is almost like proof of how necessary that is because now we've got a guy who's staring down the face of a Conn Smythe Trophy win, playing for a different team that's probably a wash talent wise to the Leafs team he left. Maybe they're slightly better, whatever. It's not that far separated. This to me is proof that this team needs to be restructured from the ground up.
I would agree. We never rehearsed that. I would completely agree. Especially if you look at the Domi situation, there's been some underachieving. Obviously, John is not getting any younger. John Tavares, Nicky Dubois is not there anymore. There's not that huge plethora of depth down the middle that you used to look at in Toronto. Scotty Lawton got traded at the trade deadline. You can go on and on and on. The defense isn't going to be any better next year unless they're able to be really proactive in the trade market. There's not a lot of free agents available. So I would just say this is going to be a little bit of an uphill, painful thing. The Marner defection is crushing. And people can write and say whatever they want. I said this when it happened, and I'm going to say it again. He got run out of town. And people would say, oh, yeah, he didn't want to be there. He would have been there. I just think the situation wasn't appropriate, and he knew he had to move on, and he did. He did. It's really unfortunate. Really unfortunate.
Switching to Colorado right now, I mean, Cale Makar is clearly not playing anywhere near 100% right now. And now Nathan McKinnon, after taking that shot last night, he's questionable for game 4. Where did it all go wrong with this Colorado team?
Game 1, they fell behind 3-0, and it was amazing. Sam Malinsky shoots a puck. It gets blocked by Brett Howden. Puck goes right over to one of the defensemen for Colorado, or for Vegas, excuse me, Ben Hutton. Ben Hutton comes screeching out, shot on goal, long range. Wedgwood makes a save, and then the rebound goes up in the air, and it goes into the back of the net to make it 3-0. And that was it. I'm telling you, you could see it right from game 1 that for whatever reason, Colorado didn't have it, Kyle. They just didn't have it. And that was the play. When I'm watching that, and it's a big time zone difference where I'm watching it from, and when I was up in Sweden, and I'm going, oh boy, these guys are in trouble. Like if they don't respond in game 2, they're done. And that's what happened. Look what happened last night in game 3. They're up 3-0 in game 3. They can't sustain the lead.
Yeah.
So they're in trouble. I mean, we all know that.
They're in big trouble. And like that first period last night was exactly the response they're exactly the start we would have expected
Yeah.
through games 1 and 2, and of course game 3 after losing 2 at home. But as you say, they could not sustain it. They never put another puck in the net, and that was that. I want to take it back to Tortorella right here because even if they stop as far as getting to the Cup final, if they can close out Colorado, which I suspect they'll be able to do over the course of the next 4 games, given the momentum and given the potential injury problems, we're going to be talking about what he's done in Vegas for a long, long time after here. How was he able to give this Vegas team a new identity and a new mindset so quickly? This is one of the most impressive coaching jobs I've ever seen.
We agree. And the regular season spoke to that. One regulation loss in his first 8 games. That's when you think about that, that's amazing. Coming in and transitioning to a team that was really having no identity at all. So I think John came in and make the workplace environment a little bit better. He turned it into us versus the world. Everybody's doubting us. Everybody's doubting me. We're all going to swing together from the same rope. We're going to go out there and kick some serious butt. And they did do that. He turned the stars loose. I think he got a huge endorsement from Jack Eichel, who played for him at the Olympics in Milano, where the Americans won a gold medal. And I think it just took off from there. Don't forget, too, there John had some proving to do. John had to prove to some people that he still had some game left in the NHL as a coach. And I think he knew that. And I think he just went in there and swung from the hip. And the guys like that. They really did. And so you look at it, he deserves a big pat on the back from ownership and management in Vegas. He's done a really nice job.
And if they are in fact able to bring Lord Stanley's Cup into one of those Vegas nightclubs to sip from later, that draft pick they lost will be long forgotten. I can
Yeah,
promise you. I can promise you that much, and that might even be historically remembered as a strategic move to keep this team focused.
good
Who knows at this point?
good
Okay,
point.
Pierre, let's turn our attention to this incredible series that moves to Montreal tonight in the Eastern Conference. Man, back and forth in game 1 and 2. I would say now it's pretty level. This is now a 5 game series, and I don't know that either team truly holds an advantage. Look at the line right now. Canadians plus 110, Montreal minus 132. That's about as close as a wash as it gets in the NHL playoffs.
The Canadians have to start well in Montreal. They have not started well this playoff season in Montreal. They got to get off to a good start and keep the fans behind them, number one. Number two, it's really impressive to watch what Rod Brind'Amour did in game two. His team was no good in game one. Montreal was very good. But in game two, Rod Brind'Amour snapped into attention, especially in the neutral zone. And one of the things they did that doesn't get enough credit, they dominated the cycle game, spent a lot of time in the Canadian zone. And while it didn't turn into a lot of goals, what it did is it forced a lot of those better Montreal Canadiens players to play defense, Kyle, rather than offense. And because of that, it took a lot of punch out of their game. And if you look at it, it wasn't the top guys scoring. It was Nikolai Ehlers, who plays on the third line with Jordan Stahl and Jordan Martinook. It's Eric Robinson, who had his second goal in 2 games, who's a fourth line player. So their depth players were able to soften up those Montreal Canadian players, and that's what led to their big win in overtime on Saturday night.
So give me a key to victory potentially for either team tonight. Even if that comes down to a player who you think would be a difference maker on either side that can guide their team to a game 3 victory.
I think for Montreal, Cole Caulfield's got to score at least 2 goals tonight. He's got to
At
figure
least
it
two
out.
goals.
He
Wow.
does. He
I wish
does.
someone pull up what that pays on Bet Rivers.
Yeah. So I'm going to say Cole Caulfield's a guy who's going to he's got to get going here offensively with more consistency. I know he had a big game one. I know Slavkovsky had a big game one, but I'm expecting in Montreal and home ice. He hasn't had any big games in Montreal this playoff season. I'm expecting Cole to get going. And they've got to score first. They have to. They got to get the fans something to cheer about. That's one of the big advantages they have, their fan base. And for Carolina, it's pretty simple. Dominate the neutral zone and dominate the cycle game. And if they do those 2 things the same way they did in game 2, they might have a real good chance to go up 2-1 in the series.
I want to close today, Pierre, with a broader conversation about the NHL playoffs and something that's been showing not only on the eyeball test, but also analytically. It seems as though in hockey, and I've noticed this over the last couple of seasons, other than the obvious last change advantage, regular season performance and home ice advantage really don't mean what they used to anymore. It's obvious. You can see it, and the analytics tell you the same story. But I'd like to hear from your perspective as a guy that's been in hockey for so long. Why do you think that has changed so much?
Because all the rinks are 200 by 85. All the glass is the same level. The creases are the same. The trapezoids made it a great equalizer because goalies can't go out and play the puck as much. But I would love to see the trapezoid go away because I think it would lead to more opportunities. But they're obviously not going to do that. Zero tolerance on obstruction. It used to be where the home team could get away with some obstruction and would lead to more opportunities for the home team. Can't do that anymore. So there's a lot of different things that I've seen that figure into it, but I think the biggest thing is dimensions of the ice. You used to go into Buffalo, used to go into Montreal, used to go into Chicago, go into Boston. All the ice surfaces were different size. All the glass, you go into Joe Louis Arena, the glass was really low on the side of the ice, and then you go into another building and the glass is really high. So every building was a little bit different, but they're not different anymore. They're all standardized. Players get to the NHL, they're used to crowd noise. They are like people think, oh, the crowd noise is going to be intense. The crowd noise doesn't bug the guys. Half of them can't hear it anyways. You just can't hear it down there. So that doesn't matter anymore.
I mean, you've talked about Montreal's slow starts in their own building this playoffs too. Do you think it's almost like the crowd noise and the pressure that comes with it being at home might be detrimental because the visiting team has the luxury of performing without that pressure of expectation in the first period? Is that possibly why we're seeing that in Montreal?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I agree with that. But here's another one. Players on the other team get paid too.
Yeah.
Okay. The other guys are pros. So when somebody's serenading them before the game with ole, 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 those guys get mad. I know the fans don't want to hear that, but trust me, the players get mad. I've been down there before, I can tell you. And then the other thing, the loud pregame introductions, it's the only rink in the league where they're announcing their starters like it's an NBA game. And the other guys in the other team don't like that. I'm just telling you. And I think it stalls the game. I really think and I think it really stalls the home team. We'll see whether they continue to do it or not. But I think those are a couple things I think have hurt Montreal at home.
Yeah, I've always felt that only a series opener should have those types of intros, which is for the fans. But after that, let's just play hockey and get going.
Yeah, we agree.
Okay, Pierre. Well, I'll be talking to you next week. Geez, we're going to have possibly some conclusions in these series come or should be mathematical. I think all series will be concluded by this time next week, and we'll be previewing the Stanley Cup Finals in all likelihood next Monday. I look forward to that. Colorado's in trouble, but this series in Carolina, between Carolina and Montreal, is a wash at this point. So enjoy it.
Thank you, sir. Great visiting with you, Kyle.